Hey, you're listening to the Worshipology podcast. This is a biblical, practical, spiritual conversation all about living and leading worship. And today I've got Noah Harrison on the podcast. Say what's up, man.
What's up, guys? How you doing? Excited to be
Dude, I'm
here.
excited. I'm excited for this convo, man. So Noah, worship leader at Bethel, New York, writer and singer on songs like Elohim, Oh Lord, My God, great songs with Bethel Music. In fact, here at our church in Richmond, we've been crushing Elohim, man. What a great song.
Let's go.
And it's got such a great vibe behind it, man. But dude, I love all the things you're in, man. Why don't, for our listeners, you just give a little bit of a snapshot? Like, how did you get started in songwriting, leading worship? And then, of course, how did you end up with Bethel, New York, man? Love to hear it.
Yeah. I mean, it's a long story. I'll try to condense it. And then if we want to, talk about anything specifically, we can go back. But I grew up in a Christian house. My dad I remember, like Saturday morning as a little kid, just waking up and just kind of hearing my dad jamming out, singing Matt Redman in the living room. And
Let's go.
So I grew up, just in a house that was full of music. My parents had a cassette thing, then they would play Switchfoot and Rita Springer and all these old, like, just these awesome tapes. And so I grew up in a very musical house. My parents are both, like, my dad still plays acoustic to this day.
Okay.
My mom's a great singer.
Yeah.
But I probably started like worship leading more. I was probably like 13 or so, and my parents had started a church plant, and they kind of ended up turning it into a small group, and it just became like this kind of small group lunch thing where everybody would meet up for lunch and eat together and then worship and share verses from the Bible. It was awesome. So my church experience as like a young high schooler was like just essentially a small group. And it was awesome. Like I had no concept of what a mega church was until until I had I was probably like in my late like senior year of high school. I started hanging out with some friends who were going to this church called Kensington in Michigan.
Okay.
And they're awesome. I met so many amazing people there. And I started just playing acoustic for the youth band. And then I ended up leading a little bit by the time I was a senior. And I interned at that church for this guy named Michael King, who was like, he's an awesome music director guy. And I actually, during that time that I was interning, I got really close with some friends named Val and James, who are moving to Reading to be a part of Bethel. They had some friends there. And so me and like 3 or 4 other guys, all at our church, all decided we were going to do BSSM, the ministry school at Bethel.
Okay.
And we all jumped in our cars and drove across country in cars that were not fit to drive across the country.
Nice. They barely made it.
Barely. Like they were barely hanging on. And I, along with a few of my other friends from that church, went through the BSSM, the ministry school. So I did all 3 years.
Okay.
And through that time,
was there like a specific focus that you did in the school? Is there like a worship track when it comes to that?
Yeah, everyone always asks that, but there's not really. It's more general. It's more
like
just
a well-rounded scope.
Yep, like there's Bible classes, so there's like some biblical stuff. There's a lot of like, in my opinion, a lot of it has to do with like internal emotional health, healing, and growth.
Yeah.
And that really relating to relationship with God. So I would say most of the focus is on a bit of theology and helping like people build healthy, correct biblical theology. And then also just like there's a lot of people that are going through a lot of healing. I mean, me included. That's a big part of it. And then I think you're in the Bethel environment, so there's a lot of creative stuff happening. There's a lot of people writing songs. There's just really excellent worship. So that just kind of happens because you're there, and it's kind of just the environment that the Johnsons have stewarded. And so there's I mean, there were like a couple classes.
Okay.
But there's no it's not like degree in production or worship leading or anything like that. It just kind of like there was also a big the BSSM classes have their own worship teams, so that's a big part of it too. If you're serving there or playing an instrument, so I led worship in BSSM, so that was probably a big part of forming my worship leading, and all that stuff.
Wow.
But yeah. So that was, I lived there for 3 years, did BSSM, and then I stayed another 3 years after.
Okay.
And that's where I met my wife. We got married, lived there for one more year, and then we moved to New York.
Wow. So what is that journey like, going from school? And then what did your 3 years, that 4-year period after school, kind of look like out in Reading before you came out to New York? I mean, what a huge change to go from literally coast to coast. And, where did you kind of accept I guess like an assignment really of like, hey, would you consider being a part of Bethel, New York?
Yeah, it's a great question. Well, I think that when I was in BSSM, I wonder if a lot of people have this experience in different ways, whether it's you're in college or you're in, a ministry school or whatever, but you kind of feel like the world revolves around what you're doing, while you're in it. And you're kind of like everything, like, everyone needs to hear what I got to say. You know what I mean? And so I think in a sweet way, I think the Lord kind of walked me through that through BSSM of being like, almost kind of like as I started growing out of being this young kid into starting to become a young man, really like teaching me humility. And so I finished all 3 years. And I think a lot of people in BSSM at the end of it, they actually do a whole session where they're teaching. They have this thing where they teach people about there's a guy named Danny Silk. He has this thing where he's like, a lot of you are going to go back to your home churches and you think you're Superman and you're going to come flying in like Superman, but everybody at the church thinks you're a missile and they're going to shoot you down and it's not going to feel good. So really just being like, hey, when you just because you do these years, like it doesn't mean you know everything and you have the golden key to everything. But I think I finished the 3 years, and I think I had a thought in my head of what ministry in my life would look like, and it would just be this crazy thing where just like revival stadiums filling up and I'm going everywhere. And it was really interesting because when I finished school, there was a good season where I wasn't leading worship on stage. I wasn't I wasn't in front of people. Like for a good chunk of time I was just doing construction work and sweating
Dude,
like crazy and smelling gross, living in Northern California. I'm going way too in depth into this, but
no, but I mean, it's interesting because I think a lot of people would resonate with that same kind of season where, you're working towards a certain goal and God kind of hits a pause on your life. Hey, wait, I need you to learn some characteristics. I need you to grow the depth of your heart here. And talk about that a little bit. Like, how did that, you talked about that class of like humility kind of being embedded in your heart. And I mean, obviously like God's doing huge things now. And, he's kind of giving you platform, quote unquote, to say, but like going through that season, would you call it a wilderness season? Would you call it kind of a season of pruning? What would you say? No.
Oh yeah. There was a good like 6-7 months where I was like, I went through like a big season of depression. Wow. I don't even know if it was related to any of this stuff, but I did go through a lot of like, I think I was riding this high of like ministry and, like almost kind of like my college years of like, oh, this is awesome. And then I think just feeling some disappointment in certain areas and being like, oh, wow. Okay. I thought it was going to look like this and it's not. Yeah. And I thought that following you meant I was going to get this, this, and this, and I don't have that. And so, yeah, I think so. And I think even as a worship leader and as a songwriter, you watch people around you sometimes skyrocket and they, become this, they're doing all the things that you wish you could have done. And I feel like in those seasons when that's happening, I just remember there was a time where I just felt like it was really important for me to write songs and just be okay with like, if this never goes anywhere, if nobody ever listens to this, and like, this is only for me and it's only for the Lord. Is that going to be okay for me? And so I think I had in that time definitely a season where I was like, can I just sit in my bedroom and worship, and can that be okay?
Wow.
And having that question answered.
Wow.
So yeah, that was important for me, I think, to just have a time where I was like, it's important for me to do this. It's important for me to worship. It's important for me to write, minus anybody ever hearing it, ever making money, ever, going anywhere.
Wow.
So yeah.
That's so good. So that formative season, kind of in the unknown period, what did that look like? And then how did you kind of go from that stage to, I would imagine you're probably leading some at the Reading Bethel, and then somehow, it's like, man, this guy's got a gift. Like what we're launching in New York. What did that look like, that whole season?
I think, in that time, I learned, I figured out how to make demos on my computer.
Nice.
So I would just really consistently write songs and finish them. I started releasing songs.
Okay.
Before anything, I put out the song called Lord of All when that was 2020, I think, or 2019.
Yeah.
So I was doing that. There wasn't a ton of wind behind it, but I was just doing it, and I was releasing stuff, and it didn't necessarily sound great, but I just did it.
Just being faithful.
Yeah. And I was leading at Bethel, Reading. The label Bethel Music and the church Bethel Church they're connected, but they are separate. So
okay,
you could be leading at church, but you're not necessarily like a Bethel Music artist.
Gotcha.
So I led there for a couple years after BSSM and just served. And
what's that process like? Is it like you're rehearsing during the week and doing a service? Is it kind of like you're on a specific time, amount of times a month, or what is that like? Is it pretty much like most churches, how it comes to just serving at your local church?
I think so. I think it's funny, this, like, people that tune into the stream of Bethel Reading, it looks like it's this crazy giant mega church, and it's like this huge thing. And then you're there, it's like, it's actually pretty humble size. It's actually a gym.
I've been in the room. Yeah.
You've been
it's
there.
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And no joke, one of the best sounding rooms I've ever been in, but you're right. It's not this overwhelming thing. It's like, oh, okay. Yeah. Like this is a very local church, and it's a vibe.
100%.
Okay. So you're leading there on a consistent basis. And then how does that leap to New York go?
So we were leading there. My wife and I got married. Carling, she's actually in the other room with our little wiener dog, Frankie.
Hey,
he's the best.
That's awesome.
So we got married, and I think we both had a feeling that we were going to go somewhere.
Wow.
But we weren't totally sure. And also, Reading is just such a sweet place. And we still have a lot of great friends there. But at the time, we had tons of people around us. So there's this feeling of like, this is kind of perfect, but we kind of feel like we're supposed to go somewhere. We don't know where. And Joel Power, who's our pastor of Bethel, New York, was just like, bro, we're going to New York. We're starting a church. We're starting Bethel, New York. We want you guys to come out and just lead worship for the worship nights before we start the church. And I remember telling my wife, like, babe, we are not going to New York. Like, we are not going to move there. Because growing up in Michigan, it's like, I don't know. Maybe just my friends. We never like New York was never the thing. It was always like California, Texas, like go to the warm states. But like New York, it's like, gross,
I see your Tigers hat,
Yeah.
You're living in Yankees country.
I know. There's a lot of Tigers fans and U of M fans here. I will say
they're legit, man. They're a force to be reckoned with, man.
They are.
Okay, so you guys are like, there's no way New York's not in the plan. Yeah.
And we went to the first worship night and led worship. And I just remember I looked over and my wife was sobbing, crying during worship. And I was like, oh, Lord's getting her. And then I ended up through that trip, like just loving being in New York. And I was like, this is awesome. But I also started to feel like, I think I have a heart for this place. And even just the people that we were leading with,
Wow.
some of the musicians that were already connected with the church. I was like, oh man, I really feel
Wow.
like, you know, you're around somebody, you're like, I feel like I'm supposed to be around you, like
Yeah.
your family, your kin.
Mm-hmm.
And so so we came back 2 or 3 more times, and by the third time we both had heard from the Lord that we were supposed to go to New York, and
Wow.
we were waiting for the other person to tell the other person. We both ended up telling each other, and we're like,
Yeah.
okay, let's go.
It's
And then
gotta
we
be.
started looking up the rent prices, and we're like, oh no.
Hey, maybe
Like,
this
oh,
wasn't
no.
the Lord. We don't know.
Oh yeah, man. It was like, oh no. So it is very expensive. It's very
Is
crazy.
it still crazy? Because I had a buddy that lived in Manhattan, and he had a studio apartment, and this is back in, I want to say 2016, 2017, last time I was in New York, and his studio apartment was like $4,000 a month. And this was, 8 years ago, before all the inflation stuff. So I know it's not cheap today, man.
That's crazy. I'm sure that it is extremely high.
Yes.
Yeah, I think like the median rent is like $4,000 for
That's
like a
wild.
1-bedroom. Yeah,
That's wild.
It's crazy. But
so what year was that when you guys made that move to New York?
So that was 2 Septembers ago.
Okay.
So
wow.
This September will be our 3rd year.
Amazing.
Being in New York. So we've been here for 2 years.
And talk about the launch. Yeah. Talk about just being a part of that and what ministry's like in the Big Apple. Yeah,
dude, it is wild. It's crazy. I think the first year, honestly, we just were like, I can't even tell you, because I think we were just trying to like survive, you know, because it was just all new stuff.
Wow.
The city's crazy. Yeah. We had some friends here, but not a ton of friends. So it was kind of like, who are our friends? Where is our safety? Where is our da-da-da-da?
Yeah.
We just, I think, settling into being in a tiny apartment and like learning how to do that, learning how to have rhythms of like, now we know like we have to go on walks every day and go to the park. And if we don't, and we just are in our apartment or just hearing people honk, we'll go crazy.
Wow.
So we have to like schedule in that like time with the Lord in the morning, going out to the park, walking our dog, these things that we're kind of learning over time. It took a bit of time for sure to ease into it. And then on top of that, it's like we now have 3 services every week, which is I think it's a good amount, you know, for being a startup church. So we have a prayer service on Thursday,
very cool,
Sunday morning, and a Sunday night.
Okay. And what kind of facility are you guys meeting in the city?
So we meet in a very old Baptist church building.
Okay.
It's very, very old. It's like over 100 years old.
Wow.
And it's right across the street from us. Like literally,
that's
you could
awesome.
walk there in 30 seconds.
Wow.
Yeah. So we meet there for our PM service. That's like our full band.
Okay.
And then our morning service is downtown. It's actually, we share an office with Hillsong, New York.
Oh, very cool. So they're not all services are in the same building then.
No. Yeah.
Okay.
So the main PM one is in the big building, and then our morning service is in the office building. There's kind of a small chapel room that we meet in.
Yeah. And then you said there's a Thursday night. It's kind of like more of a prayer service, or how does that look?
Yep. Prayer service. So it's very stripped back, super simple. It might just be an acoustic and a pad. Maybe a piano. We'll have a couple people singing. It's like an hour and a half. And it's just kind of free worship. We'll plan a couple songs, but we'll just kind of let it go where it goes. And then there's a prayer team. They'll come up and kind of interact with the team. People will pray. People will do worship. We'll kind of flow in and out.
That's awesome. Now we're actually about to start a service on Wednesday nights here called House of Prayer. And it is interesting because the midweek service is like, it's back. I mean, like so many churches are bringing it back. I think just because of a hunger of like, you know, people want to gather more corporately than just on a Sunday, right? And so you're starting to see these pop up. It's kind of a common theme in the conversations I've had lately. And talk to us a little bit about, you know, when you walk into that environment of like, hey, we're just here to, it's more free flow. It's not as structured. What's the kind of the big takeaway for you as a worship leader in that? And then how do you bring intentionality, but also, you know, leaving room for the Spirit to move how only the Spirit's going to move in that place?
Yeah. No, that's a good question, because it's something we're talking about right now. kind of looking at the context of what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So on a Sunday morning, the context of our worship is a little bit different than our Thursday night.
Okay.
So our Sunday morning there's usually a lot more new believers. There's a lot of guests that come in. And so I think that there is more of a kind of a mantle to lead the room and to really like shepherd people as a worship leader.
Mm-hmm.
On our Thursdays, those can be kind of special because it's like we actually will kind of face in, kind of similar to like how Upper Room might do that.
Yeah. Okay.
And we're definitely not ignoring people in the room, but our main goal is really to like worship and minister to the Lord and connect with the Lord, receive from the Lord, and give him praise.
Yeah.
And so it's a different setting because we're like, I'm not necessarily thinking about, okay, what thing should I sing to unify the room in worship? I'm more just kind of going.
Wow.
And then usually the room does kind of come with us. But it's kind of cool, I think, to sharpen the tool of singing spontaneous, doing prophetic songs. We still do that on Sunday, but there's just so much space on Thursday to just go for it. And so I've actually had a lot of nights where I've like sang something and it became a song that I wrote.
I was going to ask.
It's just like a breeding ground because it's like you might be on the same progression for 30 minutes and you're just going over and over again. And there's so many, I just feel like there's so many fresh moments that come out of it whenever you really dig into it.
Wow.
So yes, I feel like every time we do it, I hear either me or somebody else. I'm like, wow, that could be a song. That would be an awesome song,
That's
great
so
chorus
cool.
or a verse or something. Yeah.
Let's talk about that for a little bit because, there's a lot of, obviously like in those spontaneous moments, in those moments of just like free flow. Cause I've had the same thing where it's like somebody's hitting record and you go back and listen. You're like, wait, I think that can actually, we can wrestle that down into like a verse and a chorus and like see where it goes out of that. Are those nights and those moments where it's not so structured? Are you guys still recording those? And then what does that process look like to go back and be like, hey, I think there might be some gold in there that we can actually mine. What does that look like, Noah?
Yeah. That's a great question. So there was a song that, I was just talking to my wife about it. Actually, she was asking. So there's a song called "Because of the Sun" that we started, and we were doing something in prayer, and I was singing this thing because of the sun, and we were just. I didn't really have lyrics, but we're singing this thing over and over again. And I remember Callie. Do you know who Callie Helgenthal is? So she's one of our worship leaders as well, and she at the end was like,
she's in New York with you.
She's in New York. Well, she's in New Jersey, but really close. Yeah. And she was like, we need to write that. We need to write that. And so practically there was just a thing that stuck out that felt like I think there's been a couple moments where it's like something is sung, it's a melody, it's a word or something, and it's like you feel this thing of like, this feels relevant to our church. This feels relevant to us. Even if it was a melody, but this thing just felt really relevant. So we met back up and just kind of workshopped around this idea of like, because of the sun, the new creation, Very cool. And kind of wrote this song around that. And I think it's like, if we do record it, it's not like a super great recording. It's not like the vocals aren't auto-tuned or anything like that. It's very rough, but we do have a stream that you can go back and watch. And I guess, I mean, just speaking to worship leaders that are doing this, like, you can definitely, I think just finding those moments that pop out and where it's like, you just go, oh, something is moving about that.
That's so
or
cool.
It's like even multiple people, you all recognize this moment. And so writing around that thing and using that as the centerpiece of the song, whether it's the chorus or the bridge, or whatever.
That's rad.
But yeah.
That's really cool. Talk to us a little bit about, prophetic worship and what that means in your context and kind of, I do think, it was interesting. I wrote something a few years back about like, you don't necessarily see a worship
Yeah.
leader as a part of the fivefold ministry, but you see the fivefold ministry operating
Yeah.
in leading worship.
For sure.
So there's people that are like, they carry that like apostolic mantle as they lead worship. There's people that carry that teaching gift when they lead worship.
Yeah.
And there's
Yeah.
definitely people that carry that prophetic edge when they lead worship.
Yeah.
What does that mean for you guys in your context, and how have you seen that in your times of ministry up there in New York, man, in a city where I can only imagine like the prophetic is moving in that place, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I can't remember who I was hearing talk about this, but like there's actually a difference between a prophetic song and a spontaneous song, you know?
Yeah, that's good.
And so I think, I think spontaneous is becoming more and more a part of modern worship and churches, and it's great and it's awesome. But yeah, I think there is maybe a distinction between a prophetic song versus a spontaneous song. I think
That's good.
I think you can just do a spontaneous song and it's great, but I think prophetic to us, and I think to me, looks like you're partnering with what God is saying over your church and over your city, and you are matching that with your song, with your words and with your melody, and matching that with what's being prophesied over the church, what's being prophesied over the city. So we had that the other night, actually. There's this thing that we've been singing that I want to write into a song, but it's like specifically about New York. And so I don't know. I can't really say that I'm a professional on teaching this or fully understanding it, but
yeah,
I think that the prophetic song, I think I'm learning more and more to partner with the leaders in the church. So even if they're not the worship leaders, but catching the wave of what they're speaking over the church.
That's good. That's actually really good.
Yeah. Yeah. Like even just listening into the messages that the pastor is preaching over the church, and actually matching that with like, okay, what are we singing? What are we actually singing over the congregation and the city?
Yeah.
And matching that with the vision of the leaders.
Wow.
In our church, one of our pastors, Rebecca Cooper, is like, I don't know if I would say she's the prophet of the church, but she's definitely has a huge prophetic gift.
Yeah.
So being intentional of like listening to what is she speaking over the church, and then kind of matching that. Bill Johnson, this is maybe more on the line of songwriting.
Okay.
But maybe this goes with it too. But like he talks about sing and write the thing that you want your church to be, where you want your church to be in 10 years.
Wow.
You know?
That's good.
And so, yeah, I think that, yeah.
It's almost like a lane of like vision casting, where it's like, if you think about it, the way that we retain and learn as people is on a Sunday, let's say, like just kind of narrowing it down to a church service. Yeah. The songs teach just as much as the message does.
Yeah.
The difference is when you partner melody with the word of God, or melody with, scripture, and melody with the message, it just sticks to your memory. So it's like, I mean, that's how we can recall all these songs. And it's like, I can tell you maybe 5 messages that I remember in my life, but I mean, if you ask me about a song, I can fill up this room with like the songs. And so it's so key that you just said that, where it's like partnering with the vision of the house, and partnering what you're singing with what you're saying, because that's really where it starts to get embedded deep into the heart. And I think that's really rad, man. I got to steer the conversation in, because I really want to ask about, with Elohim and Oh Lord, my God, those 2 songs in particular, like how did those songs kind of come about, and what are you seeing God do with those songs, and how far he's taking those songs right now, and what's that wave just been like for you, Noah?
Yeah. So you're saying, how did they start, those 2?
Yeah. How did those 2 songs? Well, let's just focus in on Elohim, because I was literally just listening to that right before we hit record, and it's got such a cool vibe to it, production wise, but also just the message of that song. How do you start writing a song called Elohim? And let's start there.
Yeah. Well, here's the magic of it, is that, and this is what I'm learning more and more, is that it's great if I have a great idea and I write something and it's like, oh, this is all me, all this stuff. But I am just learning more and more the power of co-writing and the power of doing stuff with other people. So that was actually Gable Price's idea.
Wow.
And this was like 4 years ago.
Wow.
He actually, at the time, Gable was signed with Bethel Music, and he was writing songs for, writing songs and kind of pitching them for different albums or whatever. And he was signed as a writer. So he texted me one day and he was like, "Hey dude, I had this idea for this song." And he had this voice memo. I think he had done it, I mean, probably years before that.
Wow.
And I think I remember him, it's something about the voice memo being like Brian Johnson style worship song or
Nice.
something like that. And
that's the title.
But he had this thing, like he had a lot of the song already.
Okay.
And he had this chorus, Elohim, God, and I just remember being like, wow, that's cool. So we sat, we just kind of messed around on acoustics and kind of blazed through some verses. And I remember originally we sent it in, and I think the lyrics were a little different in the bridge, and it sounded a lot like Waymaker, which was like really big at the time.
Yep.
So I remember, I think we sent it out, and they just kind of were like, "Hey, it's, it sounds a lot like Waymaker, but it's cool,
You love hearing that.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah,
no.
exactly. And I can't remember what happened. I don't know if Gable tweaked it after that or what. But a couple years later, when I was in the process of moving to New York, I was also signing with Bethel Music.
Okay.
And so they were actually looking at, I think it was the last album, and they were looking at songs. And somebody on the Bethel Music team was like, "Oh my gosh, this song is so cool."
Wow.
That you and Gable wrote. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I totally forgot about that song."
No way.
So we pulled it out and we redid an acoustic demo of it. Ended up not being on the album, but we released it as my first single once I joined. So we recorded it at worship school in the summer in July. Yeah. And that production, that's Dave Funk and David Whitworth, and they're just like
masterminds.
They're freaks. Yeah, they're so good. David.
Well, I got to give a shout out. Like my daughter's 13. She plays bass and she's crushing it, but she loves playing that bass line, especially when it ran in and it comes in on that bass line. And I mean, dude, David Funk is the man right now. And it's interesting, it is so interesting when you hear about like a song where it's like you're maybe just hearing it in the last 6 months or so, but no, this song has a genesis and it was like years and years ago.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget hearing John Mark McMillan kind of tell the same story behind How He Loves back in the day, where it was like that song had 5 years of like obscurity before it ever hit people's ears. And like, it's interesting, like talk about that, like maybe being in the waiting season of a song where it's like, oh man, like you said it yourself, where like I forgot about that song, and it's like, then it finds fresh life. Like, what's that like for you as a songwriter, man?
Yeah, that song took a long time from the very first time that me and Gable were sitting down to it actually coming out.
Wow.
It was years and years. And I think there's moments where like even close to the point where it's coming out where I'm like, it feels like it's been around so long that I almost like want to shelf it. Like, you know what I mean? Like it doesn't feel fresh, but I find it really interesting. Like just the timing of the Lord, how certain things, sometimes it's like, Oh Lord, my God was like, we wrote it and like 4 months later we were tracking it and then releasing it. So that was a very different process.
Yeah.
But Elohim was it was a really long thing. And I think there's just certain points where I'm like, I have to just remind myself that this is like, I'm surrendering it to the Lord, and however it's supposed to turn out, that's how it's going to turn out.
Wow.
And honestly, my thing is probably, like I was saying, like there's a part of me that kind of wants to like, oh man, this thing feels old. Like I just want to shelf it. And kind of staying connected to the vision of the song and being like, no, we're like, there's something on this. This feels like fresh for the church, for us right now.
Wow.
And and that's cool. to talk about even like how the song has been doing with church. It's like we've led it quite a few times in New York. And what's been really cool honestly is seeing other people do it at church.
Mm-hmm.
But even seeing like churches in New York do it, like that to me is one of the
Wow.
coolest things I've seen.
Wow.
Like it's truly an honor to be like,
Yeah.
man, a song that I got to be a part of is ministering to people in other churches in my city.
That's really cool.
Like
Yep.
that to me is like a huge honor.
That's
So
amazing.
that's one of my favorite things so far that I've seen is like New York churches doing Elohim.
Yeah.
Like, let's go. That's awesome.
Rad. That's rad. Well, we're going to put a link to that song in the show notes, and make sure y'all check that out as you're listening to this and you want to hear the song that goes with the story. Dude, what's next for you, man? Like what's on the fringes? I know you just said you were writing down in Nashville. Is that kind of a huge part of your rhythm right now, is just songwriting, co-writing, and getting that muscle strengthened for the next thing?
Yeah, I'm figuring it out for sure. I'm figuring it out. I am, like I was mentioning, I'm trying to write a song a week. That's kind of my flow right now, is what
That's cool.
That's how I'm trying to steward the songwriting side of things. I think doing trips like that, like I did this last week, I can't do it all the time just because of, it is a lot with leaving, with work, with being at church. It's a little challenging. So I'm figuring out what that looks like. Ideally, I'm hoping to do a project soon, like a EP or an album.
Oh, sweet.
So over the last year, really, I've been just in the process of writing songs and trying to, at this point, really refine down, like, okay, what is the core of what I'm wanting to say, and what songs fit that,
Wow.
Because I could throw a ton of songs in there, but like what feels like it actually fits within what I feel like I'm supposed to say, in a project. And so, yeah, that's kind of the next thing is just continuing to write and refine down the vision, I think, of
really
the next
cool
project. Yeah.
Can't wait for that, man.
Yeah, man.
Well, dude, let me just ask you in our time remaining, man. Something I love asking worship leaders every time we do this podcast, but what's the Holy Spirit speaking to you right now, man? Like, what is something that's just kind of resonating strong in your prayer life, bro?
Oh, man. I would say, I shared this with our worship team a couple weeks ago. But I personally have been in I've been in a crazy season of like some of the highest highs and the lowest lows, like really exciting stuff and just bummer stuff.
Yeah.
And I have been, before this season, I had been reading about David like almost every day. Like I was just like reading about David for some reason. I'm like, I was almost kind of obsessed with like reading the story of Saul and David and his story of being a shepherd boy all the way to being a king, and then just all the politics and everything like that. But I've really been feeling like, not in the way that like, not that God makes terrible situations happen, but I feel like the Lord has really been speaking to me about how the Lord speaks through really hard stuff and speaks identity to you through it.
Wow.
And like talking about David, it's like he spent his whole childhood practicing, killing animals, protecting the sheep, honing in his skill, and I think it took like the point where he had to like face a giant that was like way, way, way bigger than him, that like odds wise was going to absolutely slaughter him. But it took him being in that situation to kill the giant to actually like speak to people that he was meant to be a king. Cause it's like outside of that, like he just is he's kind of a joke, And so I have felt like the Lord has been, we did that. We had a meeting and I just asked our team like, hey, whatever situation you're in, whether it's like, it's really sad or you're just like being stretched in a way, what piece of identity is the Lord speaking to you through it? Like who is he trying to show you that he's building in you through this?
Wow.
And so, yeah, I think being in New York, being in a position where we're stretched all the time, usually not comfortable outside of the fact that we have amazing people here, and
Yeah.
that can be comfortable because we have great friends, great family.
Mm.
But outside of that, we're usually being stretched in some way, whether it's financially or just capacity or me
Mm-hmm.
growing as a leader, I think. But I think, yeah, the Lord has been speaking to me through the stretching and through some hard stuff and exciting stuff, but like that he's calling me to be more than just a singer, more than just a
Mm.
songwriter. Like, and I think he's just kind of been kind of using some of that stretching to show me my identity. So yeah,
Wow.
that's what I
I
would say.
love that. I love
Yeah.
that because it is, it's like you always want those mountaintops, but it's usually in the valleys where like
Yeah.
the identity comes. What do they say? This is where you find out who you are.
Yeah.
And I think that's so key, man. Dude, what an
Yeah.
awesome treat to get to hang with you for a little bit, Noah. And thanks for just sharing your heart. We're going to put some links in our show notes on how you can connect with Noah, hear some of the stuff that they're doing with Bethel Music. And excited to hear what's next, brother. Thank you for spending some time with us on Worshipology, man.
Oh, bro. Thanks for having me, dude. Seriously. Thanks, Curtis. Let's go.